We are so blessed. We just can't find a way, or the words that can say. Thank you, Lord, for your touch. When we're empty, you fill us till we overflow. When we're hungry, you feed us and cause us to know we are so blessed. Take what we have to bring, take it all, everything. Lord, we love you so much. When we're empty, you fill us till we overflow. When we're hungry, you feed us and cause us to know we are so blessed. Take what we have to bring, take it all, everything. Lord, we love you so much.
Thank you, Kim, and welcome back to you, Kim. As the song said, we are so blessed. We are so blessed by the gift from God's hand. And God's hand have so many gifts of singing, worshiping, of presence. And I'm sure our community of faith is one of those many gifts that we have received from God. This morning, we are glad to be here. We are glad to be alive because last night we went to bed not knowing how this morning will look like, and here we are worshiping again together. On a funny note, I got this sign that is actually coming to us all the way from Texas, Austin, Texas. It is a sign that was found at a Mexican restaurant, and the name of that place is called El Arroyo. And the sign said, if I'm quarantined with my wife for 2 weeks and I die, guess what? It was not the virus. I don't know why the answer came up like this one. Well, we are on our third Sunday into our worship series that we have titled Hymnology 101, Singing Through the Pandemic. Not just the one that has invaded our world, but many other pandemics of our lives. But we are using that collective singular word to refer to the many things that we all go through. And in this series, it is really our hope that we'll be able to learn the stories behind most of the hymns or some of the hymns that we have been singing in our churches. Because I know some of us who are watching our service don't just attend one particular congregation. Many of us attend many churches. So these are hymns that we have been singing at times when we lose somebody, even in our worship services. And as we look at these stories, I really hope that we can gain some strength from these hymns as we continue to battle anything that we are faced with in our lives. And the fact that we will be sharing, or we have been sharing in our services, are coming to us from some books that have been written by different people. And the first 3 books were written by Robert J. Morgan. And the fourth and the fifth were written by Kenneth Osbeck, and the two books are 101 hymn stories and 52 hymn stories dramatized. And the fifth book is Living Stories of Famous Hymns by Ernest K. Emorian. And in addition to these resources, I have come to start using the United Methodist Discipleship resources that are found online. And without taking much of our time, I would like us to delve into our first reflective story. And this is a story behind one of our favorite hymns, known as Just As I Am. The words of this hymn were written by Charlotte Elliott, who was born in 1789 and went to join the Lord in born in 1789 and died in 1871. What I've come to learn was that as a young person, Charlotte gained a lot of popularity as a portrait artist and even a writer of verse. We would call her a poet. And she had the ability of writing poems that would make people smile, poems that would light up people's lives. However, when she reached her 30s, and to be specific, in her early 30s, sometimes people say, no, when she was 31, 32, but let's say in her early 30s, she started suffering from some kind of crippling fatigue that led to a condition that left her bedridden, and other people say disabled until her death. But I would like to use the term differently able, because this hymn will teach us that disabled really cannot be applied to this wonderful lady. So from the time she was in her early 30s, she could no longer get out of her bed. So she was just in her bed, and we would call her a disabled person, but I encourage us to call her a differently abled person. So she really felt like there was no point for her to live, because she was really feeling like she was alone and cut off from the whole society. And as a result of this feeling, she developed some anger in her. And in addition, although she was brought up in a Christian home, she used to go to church for a number of years. Charlotte began to have a lot of doubt about what it meant to be a child of God. If God loved me, she mumbled, he would not have treated me this way. Do these words sound familiar? Is Charlotte the only one who would say these words? Then we are told that on May 9th, 1822, there was this Swiss minister and hymnologist by the name of César Malan, who was a friend of the family, and I would say also a spiritual mentor for Charlotte. And this friend of the family came to visit with them, and they had dinner that evening, and they started talking about different issues, including what Charlotte was going through. And guess what? She was very mad that she had to even bang on the table, and people were very sad that they had to leave the room, most of them, but Charlotte was left behind with Reverend César, who encouraged her to give herself to God just as she was, because she felt like she was angry and she did not love God a lot, and she had a lot of hate in her, and she was going through a lot of ups and downs. Then this reverend said, just bring your fightings and your fears, your hate and your loves, your pride and your shame to God, just as you are. And she said, I would come to God just as I am. Is that right? And from that day on, Charlotte became a changed person, and she made a decision to use her literary talent from where she was in her bed and transcend the limitation that had been put by her condition on her. And she used those talents to write words that could be used later on in hymns. And as the time passed, she was able to find a passage that was so or became so dear to her. And that passage was from John 6:37, which says, he who comes to me, I will by no means cast out. And years later, Charlotte's brother, who was a minister, and his name was Henry Van Elliot. This brother of hers was raising some money in order to build a school for children of poor clergy, or poor me too. How I wish they could build schools today for clergy too. So they were building these schools at that time. It seems that clergy, ministers have been poor for many years. So Charlotte, who was very ill, was confined, limited, imprisoned, under house arrest by her condition, her poor health. But while she was there in her bed one day, she recalled the message that said, come to God just as you are. And this was the message that Reverend Cesar Malan has shared with her. And then she was able to overcome. I like this verb, to overcome, because it also means to disable. So she disabled her physical limitation. She transcended it by writing a poem that has come to be known as Just As I Am. And this poem was printed and sold across England. And they made a lot of money to help the children of those poor ministers. And even though our beloved friend Charlotte never enjoyed good life with good health, she lived to be 82 years old. 82 years old. And she was able to write 150 hymns, a gift from God through somebody who was in her bed from the time she was 30, in her early 30s, up to the time when she was 82 years old and died. And before her death, people discovered later on, those who were gathering her items, that she had received 1,000 letters from people who were grateful for the way she wrote the text of the song, Just As I Am. These people thanked her because those words she wrote touched their lives. This woman transcended her limitation. And it is through God's initiative, she reminds us, through God's pardon, through God's promises and free love, that anyone or everyone can come to God. Just like Charlotte, we may and will face conflict, doubt, fightings, fear, within and without. But we are here because we can find rest in God. So we come just as we are.
Just as I am wretched, blind, sight riches feeling all around. In all I need to just as I am touched above with many doubt, writings and fears within, just as I am, my love alone has broken every barrier. How to be guided by alone,
Come, let us praise God together in the company of God's gathered while scattered people. For the works of our God are unparalleled. Everything God does reveals God's glory and majesty. Our God is full of grace and mercy, and God's faithfulness never fails. So come, and let us worship God together with reverence and awe. Almighty and most merciful God, we give thanks that you know us and love us. Open our hearts and spirits this day to hear the great good news of your power and presence with all your people. Fill our hearts with rejoicing as your wonder-working word is proclaimed in song and story. Enliven us and remind us that you are with us through the power of your Spirit and the ministry and love of Jesus Christ, who has taught us the prayer we now sing. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us today our daily bread, forgive us our sins, as we forgive those who sin against us. Save us from the time of trouble, and deliver us from evil. For the kingdom, the power, and the glory are yours, now and forever.
Good morning. First scripture reading is Lamentations 3, verses 22 to 23. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. The second reading is from Psalms 36, verse 5. The goodness of God. Lord, your constant love reaches the heavens. Your faithfulness extends to the skies. May we find wisdom in these readings. Amen.
The second story we would like to reflect on is that of the hymn, Great is Thy Faithfulness. And the lyrics of this hymn were written by Thomas Obadiah Chisholm. And I had to practice how to pronounce this last name, and Terry helped me, Chisholm. And he was born in 1866 and died. His body died, but not his spirit, because he's still with us, in 1960. And I will refer to him as Thomas, just like people refer to me as a Christian. So our beloved friend Thomas, who sometimes described himself as just an old shoe. I don't know why he would refer to himself like that. But I guess some musicians can be crazy sometimes. So this man was a native of Kentucky and had no high school or advanced education. But somehow, by the power and the mystery of God, he ended up becoming a school teacher at 16. And where was he a teacher? He was a teacher in the schoolhouse where he received his elementary training. And later in his life, he was ordained in the Methodist Church, and he became a pastor at age 36. However, he had to retire a year later because of his poor health. And as a result of this, he faced a lot of challenges in order for him to take care of himself and find enough money to provide for himself. So we learned that he had to work sometime, and then there are times when he couldn't feel well, so he had to stay at home. But by all means, he tried to do everything he could to make ends meet. From journalism to insurance to evangelistic work. And some years before he passed away, we learned that Thomas said in a letter this: "My income has never been large at any time due to my impaired health in the early years, which has followed me until now. Although I must fail to record here, although I must not fail, to record here the unfailing faithfulness of a covenant-keeping God. And he has given me many wonderful displays of his providing care, for which I am filled with astonishing gratefulness." And later on, our beloved friend Thomas embraced Lamentation 3:22 to 23 as a treasure for him because of what it had to say. And here's what that passage says: "Through the Lord's mercy," and we read this passage earlier, "we are not consumed by anything. Because of his compassions or mercies, because his compassion or mercies fail not. They are new, not just one day or on Sunday morning, but every morning. Great is your faithfulness." Through all the ups and downs of life, Thomas was able to discover new blessings from God every morning. And the passage we just read from Lamentation became the one that would inspire Thomas to write the poem, Great is Thy Faithfulness, in 1923. I have come to learn that in his life, Thomas wrote a number of poems. And to be specific, really, it's a hard thing to do. But they just say it is over 1,200 poems. And he had sent a number of these poems to a good friend of him, a minister by the name of William Runyon, who was a Christian composer from the US. But this particular poem, Great is Thy Faithfulness, his friend William once wrote, held such an appeal that I prayed most earnestly that my tune, the tune he was going to compose for it, might carry over its message in a worthy way. And the subsequent history of its use, what follows, indicates that God answered prayer. The hymn, Great is Thy Faithfulness, is a reminder to us that God is always faithful, even in the hard times. It's my prayer that God will provide God's care to all of us as we journey on. And as God continues to do that, as God continues to provide for us and fill us with goodness, may we be filled with astonishing gratefulness, just like our beloved friend Thomas Obadiah Chisholm was. Great is Thy faithfulness.
Great is Thy faithfulness, God our Creator. There
Let us pray. Oh dear God, great is your faithfulness. You are so faithful to us that you allow us, oh God, to come as we are. When I look at the history of our churches, there were times when people could not be allowed to come wearing shorts into churches. At times when you show up like that, people say, oh, we don't worship like that. But I'm glad we have all come to learn that, God, you accept us as we come. Because we never know what the person might be going through. There are times when people wear what they do wear, not because they want to, but because they have limited resources. But they bring to you their heart, their gifts and their graces. We thank you because through your faithfulness, oh God, you continue to teach us that we are to come to you as we are, and we are to allow people to come to us as they are. Because as the world continues to evolve or even change, there are still people who are not welcome into different places, not just churches, because of maybe how they look or who they are. Our prayer this morning is that you may help us at Chalmers-Castle Downs United Church and help us as members of your World House to help cultivate that culture where all are welcome, not just in words, but in actions. We thank you because you embraced Charlotte Elliott. We thank you because, God, you walked with Thomas Obadiah Chisholm. And we thank you because you have walked with so many people who have left us great hymns. And very soon we will be reflecting on the life of Thomas Dorsey. May you help us, God, to be the hymns that people need in their lives, the people that we meet, the people that you have brought into our lives. I know that not every one of us can even carry a melody on them by themselves. Not many of us have the courage to sing aloud in the presence of other people, but we can sing different kinds of songs in the way we walk and even talk. And when people listen to the melody we are composing with our lives, they are touched and uplifted. We thank you for placing our community of faith in this world and to be an instrument of your hope, your love, and even your embrace. And we would like to thank you for the many things that you will do, not just for our community of faith, but for your creation in the near future. And as we continue, oh God, to cry out to you to help us in this time of COVID-19, sing with us, oh God, songs that will give us strength throughout this time of the pandemic. And now we take a moment of silence to just speak to God with the language of our heart. We ask all this in the mighty name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Our third and last story for today is about another favorite hymn known as Precious Lord, Take My Hand. And this hymn was written by an African American by the name of Thomas Andrew Dorsey, another Thomas that we have today. I have come to learn that in 1932, when Thomas was about 32 years old, and at that time he was serving as a music director at Pilgrim Baptist Church in Chicago, Illinois, he was called or invited to go and offer his musical gift with people who are going to gather in St. Louis, Missouri for a very large revival meeting. Thomas found himself in a dilemma because at that time his wife was pregnant with their first child and she was in the last month of pregnancy. And he said, why should I leave now? Should I go or shouldn't? But his wife said to him, just go. I'll be fine and you'll be back in a few days. I'll be just fine. So our friend Tom left his wife behind, and her name was Nettie Harper. So he left her in Chicago as he took off to go to St. Louis, Missouri. When he arrived there, on that first night, he was performing, was on the stage there performing, and things were going great. And around that time, there was a telegram that came in, and I learned that during those times, they would put a message in an envelope and give it to you. So there was a boy who came to him and gave him a message. And when he opened that envelope that contained the message, it said, your wife has just died. What a tragic news that was. The wife died while giving birth to their very first child. That same night, Thomas decided to go back to Chicago. So he was driven back there. And when he got there, he decided to swing by the hospital right away. And he arrived there. Of course, his wife had passed away. But he found that the wonderful baby boy was still kicking, was still doing fine. However, a few hours later, another tragic news came to him. The child also passed away. That night, Thomas would later say, I swung between grief and joy. I fell apart. For days, I closeted myself. I felt that God had done me an injustice. So our friend Thomas was very despondent. And he was filled with grief that he started seeking answers. Should I have gone and left my wife behind? Even if I left, was I going to be able to save her and even my child? Who can answer such questions? He was lost in this big ocean of grief, sadness. And we learned that a few days later, a friend of his invited him to go and visit with him on the campus of Annie Malone's Pro College. And that friend of his was none other than Professor Fry. So Thomas accepted the invitation. He went to that campus. And as they were visiting that campus, he saw a music room. And as somebody who had always found life in music, he went there, and for some reason the Spirit just led him to a piano. So he sat down by the piano there. He looked at the piano, and he started to play an adaptation of an 1844 tune by George Allen, which I'm going to try to hammer it. It's like la 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 la. So that is a melody that is used with the old hymn, Must Jesus Bear the Cross Alone. I would love to sing this song in English, but I know it in my mother tongue. I'll sing it next time for you. So finally, he was able to sense God's peace at the piano and God's closeness. And right away, he found himself singing some new words and play a new hymn that we all love singing today. Precious Lord, take my hand. Lead me on. Let me stand in my heart and in my soul. I am tired, oh God. I am weak because of what is going on in my life. I am worn through the storm, through the night, such as this one, or that one when my son died and my wife died. Lead me on to the light, because that night is still with me. Take my hand. Precious Lord, lead me home, meaning on that journey of wholeness. My friend, my relations, is there any problem too big for us to handle alone this morning? Or a grief too great for us to bear? Thomas Dorsey, through his hymn, reminds us that we can put our hand in God's hand and let God take care of us in ways that only God can. Friends of God, the works of the Lord sustain us, and together we say, God has blessed us with life. The teachings of the Lord guide us. God has blessed us with wisdom. The love of the Lord redeems us. God has blessed us with salvation. And now, may the peace of God, which transcends all natural understanding, guard and our heart and mind. Amen. Precious Lord, take our hand.
Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, let me stand and turn and weak and worn. Through the storm, through the night, lead me on to life. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me on. When my way grows dreary, precious Lord, linger near. When my life is almost gone. precious Lord, when the darkness appears.